Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the United States of a Movie podcast. Not just another episode, another season, guys. We are starting season 2. We finished our trip around all 50 states. We even did a couple of extras in between with some specials just to add on a little bit of je ne sais quoi. But now we start once again where we started, the state of California. My name is Ollie Petricu. I love movies. You may have figured it out over the last 75 weeks of this podcast. But I also have found two fellas that love movies just as much, if not more than me, and it's just really my pleasure to welcome you guys back for season 2. First of all, Ryan Sunner, welcome back, buddy.
It's so great to be back, even though I saw you nutsacks last week. starting a new season, ready to go around the country again, or what's going to be left of it. Like if you're listening this on Monday, greetings from New Gilead.
So hopefully we can add a little bit of levity and a little bit of fun to everybody's Monday. That's what we like to do. Make the Monday a fun day. Will, for once, not sitting in your famous video store in Los Angeles. Looks like you found another one. Where are you sitting now?
I am sitting in Videotech virtually. This is the video store that I go to rent all my movies from. Asked if I could take a picture of the shop. They were like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So.
That's
right. If you're ever in Highland Park in Los Angeles, check out Videotech. This is the best video store I've ever been.
I can see you actually shopping yourself in the background there.
Yeah, there I am. Right there. Yeah,
that's cool, man. That's what a video store would look like for sure.
Yep. This is it actually is kind of hard to get a shot in there because they're in a smaller location than they used to be, so it's actually kind of hard to get a good shot.
And where's the porno section?
No, it's right behind there.
So, and this is where, because a lot of the time, I'm finding them online and renting them. Ryan's definitely renting them, definitely not committing any sort of like online larceny or crime. And then Will,
stop saying that.
But Will, you this is where you physically go and rent most of the movies that we do on the pod.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anytime I don't own anything, this is where I go, and usually they have it. Very occasionally do I run up against like a.
And Will, you would actually approach them to be a sponsor, and they said, "No, we don't want to lose money." So
yeah, they're
hard no.
Yeah, hard pass. They were like, "It's great that you're a fan," but
yeah.
No, actually,
yeah.
They really appreciate it. And if they were not a super small operation, then I'm sure they would love to sponsor us.
Yeah. Well, like I said, guys, we're starting season 2, so things are going to go down a little bit differently this time around. For the first season, the hardest part was building the map, which we have now done. We have a list of 50 champions. Now it is time to see if we can topple any of these champions. Now, the champion that we have for California actually came from a challenge episode that we did with Carrie Byron during season 1, where right towards the end, she turned us around. She brought put Blade Runner in our heads. She brought a really sort of interesting assessment of the way that California deals with AI and stuff like that. So our current champion is the original Blade Runner, but we did, I think, we straight off the bat, straight off the bat, there was just universal yes. Yeah. Which came from, well, initially I do think that Will was like, hey, should we do Fast and Furious? And considering the first 3 movies we all chose were LA-based heist movies, right. No, yeah. We're not doing the remake of Point Break with cars. But then I believe it was Ryan that threw out The Rock. And then it was just an instantaneous yes.
No, I'm pretty sure I thought you brought The Rock to the table and I was throwing a bunch of nonsense out. You said The Rock. I was like, that's a great idea because it's not LA. Will wanted to do just a 45-hour table read of Michael Mann's Heat 2, which I was on board for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have to read that one. I'm the only one that hasn't read this book.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
But I think 2 in it.
I think I did also suggest this small little indie film. Oh, Star Trek 4.
Yes,
never heard of it.
But I guess we're not doing that today.
No. Well, we agreed you were allowed one Star Trek per season.
Okay, we didn't want to blow our load on the first.
Yeah, you did. And I will submit that the movie that we ended up picking is technically a Star Trek movie.
Yeah,
it is. We got a technical Star Trek film in here.
Asterisk. I'll put an asterisk on that one.
Okay, so, well, we'll put the asterisk, yes, because we did also pick another movie, which is Loaded Weapon 1.
I don't know how it's like looking back at our text transcripts, how we ended up at this movie, because we were like, oh, let's do we'll pick Friday, and I'm sure I'm going to spoil the also rans, but we were talking about like Friday and Lethal Weapon. I'm like, oh shit, why don't we just do Loaded Weapon 1? It's like the parody of all those movies, when in reality, it's just a parody of Lethal Weapon.
Well, honestly, I think what we needed was a little bit of levity and a bit of humor in our week. And I'm glad you chose it, because the movie did crack me up.
Yeah.
I was laughing. I was like, this shit should be better appreciated.
It really does feel like a Zucker Brothers movie.
100%.
Because the jokes are they are rapid fire.
Constant.
But it is missing that certain kind of flair to it, but I still really enjoyed this one. It's a classic to me.
Yeah, for me, I'm with you. That I remember watching it back in there. I remember there was one bit from the movie I remembered from the trailer. I go, okay, yeah. And of course, when I was this age, I was obsessed with Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2 and Naked Gun and Airplane and everything else. And I'm watching this and I go, okay, this one hasn't been as kindly remembered. And I'm watching it go, no, this is funny as shit. And its cast is stacked.
There is a moment in this where John Lovitz calls out the fact that he's like, you're doing a Hot Shots, man. He's like, the other guy doing Hot Shots. You're over here doing all of this. And I was like, I don't remember that at all. That's hilarious.
Yeah. That's honestly, that's the fun part. So I did go, I'm now going a bit deeper because we've got less movies. So I've got many, many pages of notes. And it's quite fun that I started off going, very first note is Emilio and Charlie are deadpan legends. And then about 10 notes after that is like, oh, speaking of Charlie Sheen, because he rocks up as a cameo. And then we get to the point of this, John Lovett's literally referencing the fact that the Sheen brothers are both doing this. I'm like, I love it. The meta nature of this is fantastic.
It's wild. I don't remember that. I remember seeing this in the theater because I too was a child of the spoof, and I just adored those movies. I think the other one we talked about on the podcast was Fatal Instinct, the Armando Sante movie. Another great one. We'll have to figure out where that takes place.
Yeah.
But I adored this movie, and I was a little hesitant, again, watching it with fresh eyes, but there's parts of it this that I was still laughing hysterically. I thought there's a lot of great jokes in here.
No, these two movies did actually bring some joy to my week in a way which I thought would be impossible. But no, let's go with it. Let's go with Lethal Weapon. Sorry, Lethal Weapon. But
I'm going to be Loaded Weapon 1.
So it's National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, which was half the joke, let's be honest, when they first started it, because there's been so many sequels to Lethal Weapon. The thing is, there was going to be a sequel. There was going to be a Loaded Weapon 2. They even put up a poster. They were like,
they say it at the end of the movie is sequel. They look at each other and sequel. It's great.
And they're like, no, it's not, because it only made $51 million. From an $8 million budget. It's just
for a comedy.
And the thing is, I guess it's just not matching the numbers that the Hot Shots were putting out there, that the other sort of the big franchises. But no, man, this movie cracked me up. So much like Ryan said, this movie is essentially, it's just a almost full-on pastiche of Lethal Weapon, but you also get moments where you get the Basic Instinct, which we're definitely going to get to because we talked about that in the California episode. There's a Commando, Dirty Harry, Silence of the Lambs, Wayne's World, all sorts of shit.
F. Murray Abraham as Dr. Leecher. Fucking great.
But this movie stars Emilio Estevez as Jack Colt, Samuel L. Jackson as Wes Luger, Kathy Ireland as Misdemeanor, which was just amazing. Frank McRae, who turns up as the Screaming Black Captain again.
From Last Action Hero.
And 48 Hours. It's him doing a pastiche of himself from 48 Hours. It's just which is great. And then, and you get the bit with him and Samuel Jackson just screaming at each other. There is essentially a plot to this movie, which is just about drugs are out there, but they're being hidden inside basically Girl Scout cookies, but they've got a different name. In this particular case, the Wilderness Girls.
Or however, whatever accent Tim Curry is putting on in this movie.
But that is my third note in big fucking letters is Tim fucking Curry. Like, so I remember this movie existing, but as you know, I like to go back in or do a movie blind as much as I can. So many people turning up in this movie, including William Shatner as the bad guy, which is great.
General Morders.
General Morders. And I still to this day will do the where's the microphone, Mike?
Well, we talked about like him being the villain in this is to get back at Ricardo Montalban for being the villain
in Naked Gun.
He's just doing his best Ricardo Montalban, but man, he's great in this movie.
He's great. He's absolutely crushing it. And honestly, Ryan,
piranha, like, oh my god,
oh, that's the one. That's the bit.
Great. I love it.
The piranha scene. I burst out laughing.
And then he pulls out the hairdryer. It's like it's movies nonstop. Like not a lot of the stuff holds up, but watching it again, I was like, this is a fun time.
I'd say it definitely held up. I mean, that's the thing is that like Ryan, you were able to make that William Shatner, Ricardo Montalban connection because you watched Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan with us. No, You're welcome.
No.
Yeah, it's starting.
I'm unplugging.
But no,
that was a visual gag for you listeners at home.
But no joke. Because what it reminded me of is actually because William Shatner does turn up deadpan in Airplane 2 as well, when he's the guy on the moon. Right. And you just forget that Shat, he's funny. He's a funny guy. Yeah. And like the bit, like for me, I'm so glad you mentioned it, is that was the bit that really tickled me and go, oh my God, I want to watch everything he's doing. Is when he does, there's the piranha thing and he puts his face in and just like, it's ridiculous. He comes up with a fish in his mouth and I'm just like...
Spits it out, sits on the couch, has the hairdryer and the thing. It's great. Gets into like the quoting match with Dennis Leary.
Yes. I mean, so that's the thing. And that's where we're going, is that yes, that Dennis Leary turns up, F. Murray Abraham turns up, William Shatner turns up, Tim Curry, but then there's also James Doohan. There's the guys from Chips, Corey Feldman, Whoopi Goldberg, Phil Hartman, Paul Gleason, JT Walsh, like all these people that have been turning up. And also Bruce Willis, Denise Richards in it. Wait a minute.
Her first
like quickly rewound and go, that's Denise Richards, isn't it?
Yeah, for just a hot second.
I should watch Wild Things.
That movie is actually really good. I remember everyone watching that when we were teenagers because we were like, oh, apparently a hot lesbian scene. And then we watched the whole movie again. This movie's great. It's kind of like, when
let's go back to that other part.
So the thing is, like I was saying, that this is a movie that history has not been kind to. And I feel that they've made a mistake. How do you guys feel about that?
I mean, I guess you could say the same as like most, I don't know, modern-ish parody movies from that era. Like I mentioned, a Fatal Instinct. Like I think people were kind of getting tired of them, and then you get that little bit of resurgence from like the Wayans brothers, and now you just don't get spoof movies anymore.
Well, what have they just announced? That they have approached the Wayans dad and son to do a new scary movie. 20 years. The thing is, right, because I very often say that the very first scary movie is maybe it's absolute comedy gold. There was a time that movie made me laugh, and I know Will he loves Major Payne, he loves the Wayans brothers
famously,
but I'm like, I still like, for me, scary movie is the one where they were getting it without it going too far, and that's what I was really liking with Loaded Weapon, is that it was a machine gun of comedy, but it wasn't just like in the foreground. It's so much in the background. Sometimes it's just a sound effect.
Oh,
yes. And it's just like, and anything they set up, they pay off. Even if it comes out later in the show, like the movie. That's what I loved. Set up, payoff, gag.
Oh, one of my favorite one of those is when you have the witness who's talking to the police artist. You're like, oh, his lips
Mr. Potato Head? Yeah.
And it's a Mr. Potato Head. And then 10 minutes later in the background,
I'm innocent.
It's great. It's great.
Human Mr. Potato Head getting arrested.
It's great.
And then
one of my favorite gags in this is like where he hands John Lovitz's character the matches. I mean, he's up there at the squealing hotel. We'll get into it. And this is he was like, this is you're lying. And he open it up. It just says you're lying. It's great. It's just stupid, dumb shit. But it transported me back to that like time of those jokes.
100%. I've got it written here. I said it's so stupid, and I'm laughing at every gag. Yeah. It's like in the background where they're investigating like the big murder scene. I think the one with Dennis Leary.
Yeah, all the legs. Yeah,
yeah. You got the
so much, dude.
The cops in the background doing kind of like the what do you call it?
The limbo. Yeah,
they're doing the limbo.
Yeah, under the caution tape.
The limbo bit. You get his athlete's foot bit where his foot's on fire, which is like really on fire. Is great. You get the bit where he meets the buddy's new partner. It's his dog, and the whole thing that he's like his lost love is his partner has died, and you find out it's his dog. It's great.
Yeah. It's hard to not love a partner that can save your life at one time and be nuzzling your crotch at the next. You know what I mean? But it's just it's all deadpan. Like, and it's stuff like the safety tape. You know, it's suddenly Samuel L. Jackson turns around, he walks into it.
Oh, it's like a wall of it. Like, it reminded me of the scene in Hot Fuzz when he's at the crime scene. It's not as like slapsticky and ridiculous, but it still has that humor to it in this pretty gruesome scene.
Yeah.
And what I like is that, you know, people often talk about like Airplane, I believe, is the movie that has the most jokes per minute of any movie ever made. They're like there's 3 every 12 seconds or something like that. It's like doing stand up.
But that was before Megalopolis came out.
Right, which of course, which was one big joke played on the world. Will loves this movie. I still haven't seen it, so that is just me being me. But like a perfect example being where they get to the kind of like almost inevitable Silence of the Lambs scene, because that movie was so referenced when it came to things, that it took just to get them to Hannibal Lecter 5 gags. Which is like, he goes in, he goes, stay to the left. He goes, wait, the right. We turn around, the guys are feeding.
I have that audio is seared into my brain, delivered by Bull from Night Court.
Yeah. but then you get another gag of the 2 people that are in, then another gag about the guy running a corner store. It's like, it took us 5 gags to get down this corridor. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what the lazier they got when it got to the later sort of scary movies. They forgot that, no, there has to be a joke in the background. There has to be a sound effect joke. Like every time Emilio Estevez pulls out his gun, you get the you know, it's always a
he pulls his underwear out.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, honestly, this is one of those that I was convinced, like, had Will not seen this movie like forever ago, like watching it, if you had never seen it, watching it new for this podcast, you probably would have fucking hated it.
I know what you mean.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Maybe you've done this before, Will. But that being said, I still think that no, it's funny. But like, even just the bit of like, you know, when they go in, they're discovering you're going to be my new partner, and she's like, there's the psychiatrist going, and he's gun happy, and he just like immediately pulls his gun out. He's shaking.
There's a lot of just holding gun and shaking scenes in this movie. They're all good.
Thank you for saying that. The physical comedy that Samuel L. Jackson does when he like flashes back to his trauma, and he's just
so
fucking killed me.
I was just laughing so hard in that moment because he just takes it so far, and he's like, he's wobbling his face and his whole arm and everything. It's
just convulsing.
Dude, there's so many jokes and so many payoffs that like this movie felt like it was 3 hours long, like in the best way,
in a good way.
Like it's an hour and a half.
It's including the credits. 83 minutes.
Many jokes and gags, like one after the next. There's no downtime.
And just one of the other things that sticks with me is I think actually I want to touch on something else. I think maybe the parts of this movie that haven't aged well there are some gags that I feel like, you know, if you're not from the 90s, this probably doesn't make sense. A magazine comes to mind of like all the ads,
the stuff,
the mail and stuff that's in there, and it's because that killed me as a kid because I felt like that was every magazine I read. Yeah, it like had 85,000 of those.
Or the very Eastern Asian gentleman running the convenience store. That was a little like, oh boy, that's product of its time, you know.
There's some of that, even though that scene is great. And my favorite is like when the shootout is happening and the gunman and Emilio Estevez are right next to each other. That's the Scooby-Doo-ness of it all.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's like they're so clearly using the same shot, but they're doing different backflips, and it cuts to him just sitting there with a Slurpee and just like.
And that is always in my head when I go to a convenience store and I look at the Slurpee machine. I'm like, kiwi cherry, yuck.
I love it. It's great. I don't like what I don't. Is that from that opening scene? Is that from a particular movie? Like, I mean, I know it happens in like RoboCop and like the convenience store holdup, but I didn't know if that was
not from any of the Lethal Weapons,
right?
But yeah, I don't know for sure.
It's a pretty regular trope. I mean, we had it in Gross Point Blank and things like that. It's
they did a really good job making him look like
Mel Gibson.
like Riggs from exactly. They did like the wig is hysterical.
It's so good.
And another just you get the really it's constantly like the guitar riff. You've always just kind of got it's giving us those vibes. It starts off immediately like you've got the whole Riggs and Murtaugh thing. Samuel L. Jackson. I always think because for me, like Samuel L. Jackson didn't become Samuel L. Jackson until Pulp Fiction. This is right before it. And it's kind of funny to me how many movies I watched with Samuel L. Jackson and never clocked him. And then he became Samuel L. Jackson.
Like
it's
The Exorcist 3, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
It's also right. It's also kind of weird that like in a way, in this movie, he looks older than he does now, and he's like nearly 70, because he's just so smooth, and he's just got smooth hair. But in this one, he's got the sort of the male pattern baldness kind of, which is leaning into the whole like, Danny Glover's "I'm too old for this shit." He was 41 when he said that the first time, so a couple years younger.
yeah, I know.
Oh,
it's a real like when you it's kind of like when you look up Homer Simpson's age and he's like I'm 39 and you're like, oh, fuck off. Like
it's the same shit we were saying with Demi Moore, like was playing 61 or is she playing 50 at 61, but remember how the world went crazy when she was 40 years old in a bikini in Charlie's Angels 2, which is like, now everyone understands 40 is when women become hot. And so but there they were like, oh, this grandmother, it's just prancing around in a bikini.
She didn't retire? Yeah.
Good Lord. Like, how does she do it? It's incredible.
She took the substance.
She did. She took the substance and it worked. It worked big time. But yeah, so then when we're like, this movie is just chock full of cameos. Yeah. Like right at the beginning, we've got Whoopi Goldberg. Loving Whoopi Goldberg in this, like, with an afro hat kind of thing that she kind of takes off.
Ridiculous.
And like, she lets in Tim Curry, as because he's dressed as a wilderness girl.
I don't know how you can't even contort your mouth in a way to say that.
Yeah.
It's
what is his accent is nobody knows.
Generic. He had just come off of the Congo, so he had shaken the accent.
The Lost City of Zinj.
Yeah. It's funny that his accent in that movie is zanier than his accent in Loaded Weapon 1.
He's such a great henchman in this movie, though. He's a good number 2 to William Shatner's character in this.
Oh yeah.
But then it just keeps going. Like, at one point I remember you texting it, Ryan, and like I was like, I didn't watch it till the next day, but you were like, there's been so many cameos in the space of 3 minutes.
I mean,
because it was Phil Hartman and Corey Feldman and JT Morse.
It's just bang. From the police department to the Squealer Hotel, right?
The Squealer Hotel. Yeah.
It's great. We're glazing over the plot of this movie. So they're putting cocaine into cookies, making them super addicting. Whoopi Goldberg's character has a microfilm that shows evidence or something. Or something. Doesn't matter. She hides it behind a photo of her and Luger. She gets killed hysterically, I might add. Like,
that's the part I wanted to talk about, because I remember I loved, when I was younger, loved Whoopi Goldberg. She was in Sister Act, she was in Ghost. These are movies I used to watch all the time as a kid. And as it started happening, it's the really funny bit of her constantly getting shot again. And is that I remember that when I was younger and I remember it bothering me a bit because I liked Whoopi Goldberg and she got shot like 5 fucking times. But watching it now as an adult was cracking me up because it's just like.
But when she comes back later, the bit with him and JT Walsh at the hotel is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
He goes, "Have you seen this woman?" He goes, "Is that her?" He goes, No, this is a photo.
Yeah.
He's like,
it's on a t-shirt. It's
on a t-shirt. But then he wheels her in and lifts it up. He's like, I don't know, kind of out of focus.
It's kind of blurry. It's like, but it's jokes like that. It's like, is that her? No, that's a photo, and they just throw it out. But it's classic. It's classic Airplane.
Very
it's
deadpan for sure.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so funny. Like the fact that everyone in this is a straight man is just elevates it so much more.
All right, no, I've got 2 favorite jokes actually. My I think my number one was the bit where he's like, I think we're being followed, and suddenly there's these guys sitting in the back. And he's like, don't look, and they're just being super casual.
I'm gonna try and lose them.
That's
so stupid. So stupid.
If I'm in the car with like my friends Michael or Eddie, At one point, one of us is going to say, "Hey, did you catch that Stallone retrospective at the Omni?"
Yeah.
Oh, sounds fascinating.
Yeah, right.
And the other one is the one that in my notes I go, I remember that joke from the trailer. But it's the guy, I think it's John Lovitz, but he goes, give it to me real, how bad is it? And he goes, you're going to be just fine. And then they zip up the body bag.
And then they throw him in there.
I was laughing my ass off.
It's
and
great.
It's like
I said, it's my third favorite John Lovitz movie next to High School High and City Slickers 2. High School High being another like very spoofy film on like a 187 or Dangerous Minds where he goes back to high school, and I love it.
Yeah, was it the one of the other also rounds I'm sure we'll be talking about? Yeah, but don't be a menace to South Central.
Yeah,
while drinking juice in the hood, and I was like, that's the bit that's of all the gags, that's the one I really remember is getting the same guy from Higher Learning, a movie that we'd all watched at school, and playing the same role, and then he goes, hey, I'm good, I'm gonna go to college, and then just immediately gets shot, and I was like, it was so funny. And this is the thing that I'm reading, because like the film received mostly negative reviews. I saw it when I rented it. It was like 20% by like on the tomatometer and like 40 something from an audience, and I'm watching it going, what? And they're going, yeah, they're comparing it negatively to Abrams Zucker movies, and I'm like, it's the same. How is it different from Naked Gun 2? How is it different from Airplane? It's the same vein, and they're doing it well.
Yeah. And I think the problem is like the expectation of it is like, oh, it's another one of these, so you kind of know what you're gonna get. The problem is that they do it very well. So, yes. I mean, it's still like, it's not a bad parody when you get into like the later scary movies, or, I mean, to me, there's really no, or like a movie 43 or the Spartans, all the like really,
there's shit.
Another team, like all those like that where everyone's getting sick of it. But.
Yeah, so this is my thought. So that's kind of my theory is this movie, I think, got unfairly judged because it was around at a time when there'd been a lot of them going on. We've just had Hot Shots, which was a massive one. It was just a gargantuan hit. And we've had all these sort of like, the Zucker movies and things like that I think it was just we were tired of it. But watching it now, I'm like going, it made me laugh out loud multiple times.
Because there's nothing like this anymore. Really.
No, it's all lazy.
I kind of think maybe some part of the problem was Naked Gun was doing so well. This is also a police like action comedy.
True.
So maybe it was because it's not the Zuckers and it's so adjacent to those audiences were kind of getting tired because like Hot Shots is at least parodying a different genre. So it was maybe it felt like this was stepping on the toe. I disagree. I think this movie's great. I love this movie.
I think for a lot of people our age too, I guess it just depends. It's so subjective. Like this could have also been your first spoof movie. And if that was the case, like probably not the best one to start with, even though it's still great. We have the pedigree of like growing up watching like the Naked Gun, or Airplane.
I mean, that was just my childhood. It's just watching them on repeat. I mean, I remember like
for sure.
Every Christmas for 3 years running, we got like, there was the VHS of Naked Gun, then it was Naked Gun 22 and a half and 33 and a third the next year.
But also it's like that generational leap. Like these spoof movies or films I would watch with my dad, and we would just the different, like there are jokes watching this now. I'm like, oh, I remember not getting that joke as a kid. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I mean, Naked Gun for me is the movie I like to watch because it always reminds me of the hardest I've ever seen my father laugh.
Right.
And every time I watch that scene, it's Strike 2, Strike 3, that bit. My dad close to dying. And I'm just like, it's embedded in my memory as the funniest thing I've ever seen because my dad almost died watching it. But then this movie's got like, there was such a throwaway line that cracked me up was every time they turn up at these scenes, they're always like, looks like a suicide. And like, when they turn up,
my God, bullets everywhere.
The Dennis Leary one, exactly. He's just fucking like, looks like another suicide. What the fuck?
The actor, oh my God, the guy who plays when Luger is like Samuel Jackson's character walks into a crime scene, he's like, what do you got? And he's like, I don't know, some kind of itching. Or it's the guy from all of the Police Academy movies. That's Proctor? Is his name Proctor?
Guy.
I think
it's Proctor. He's like the chief's right hand man. Funnily enough, the director of this movie I think also wrote like Police Academy 4, 5, and 6.
The good ones.
and also I believe wrote our
The substance
classic
patient.
Sudden Death. He wrote Sudden Death.
Oh, hell yeah.
I was trying to remember the name of our podcast, the United States of Movie Classic, Sudden Death.
So the movie is directed by Gene Quintano. But yes, you are correct that he wrote Police Academy 3, Police Academy 4. He directed
the good ones.
He wrote Operation Dumbo Drop as well.
Ooh.
The Ray Liotta, Bill Murray one? No, that's
Operation Dumbo.
Dennis Leary.
That's it.
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta. Yeah. Oh my God.
Isn't there a Bill Murray elephant movie I'm thinking of?
Is that Lost in Translation?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson was playing the elephant, right? But he only sees her as Scarlett Johansson. I haven't seen that movie. I only saw like the first half an hour, and I think I fell asleep. I should go back to that one. But yeah, no, this guy. So yeah, Quintano, and then it was like a lot of the people involved. So it kind of like the guys
hit after hit after hit.
But story by screenplay by Don Holly, also written by Gene. So it's like these guys got together, watched some movies, smoked some weed. Yeah. I will say,
I think it's the last movie he made, like on that list.
They didn't bring back Permission to Moscow.
No.
But there was also like the funny scene that got me cracking up that we referenced when we did the challenge episode with Carrie is that we also had Basic Instinct. And how when it got to the famous scene,
the gratuitous beaver shot,
you guys you're both like, I think it was Ryan more, but like remembering going, I thought there was like a whole thing, and you realized you were remembering.
Oh yeah, no,
the audience, the stadium seating. John Lovett's coming back and he's like, hey, what I missed, guys? Wait for me. And he's like, I thought you died. He's like, I thought this was the sequel. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, no, that was the scene. That was a scene like for years in my head when I imagined Basic Instinct. I'm like, oh yeah, there's like an audience or something.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is a who's who of like US of AM all-stars. I mean, you've got the guy doing the interrogation is the helicopter pilot in Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
Well, then of course, I mentioned this in the text thread, but Corey Feldman's in this as a cop, which is one of my favorite lines where he fires and Samuel L. Jackson, who shot that gun? And then he's like, give me the gun. You can have it.
Yeah, he's got no lines in this movie, right?
No lines.
Like,
maybe he said like me, sir, or something.
Yeah,
like
it was me,
sir.
sir.
Oh, right, okay.
But I bring it up because then later when Estevez is going through like the sewer and he comes up, he's in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And this is the weirdest thing. I never noticed it till now. Donatello is famously voiced by Corey Feldman in the original film. They dub over his voice, completely different actor.
I was wondering.
Like, same line though?
Same line.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe this is like a SAG thing. If he showed up, if it was his voice as a different character,
maybe
they'd have to pay him again. I don't know. Like what the there's no reason to do it. It's so weird.
Stay tuned for next week on Too Many Feldman.
I do love that. Like, so I saw that moment where he looked at he's like, oh, I could go through the sewer, and I go, what are they going to do? Some Ninja Turtles thing? Immediately, I was like, oh, well, there we go.
Yeah.
Hold it.
I mean, you get Phil Hartman doing like a tight 2
stand up. Yeah,
great.
Oh my god.
But yeah, like that whole. That's when I text you guys. I'm like, dude, like every scene. Then you have Eric Estrada not playing their Chips characters, just as themselves.
Right.
I think there's a bit of trivia, like them firing their guns when they famously like never fire their guns on the show.
Ever. Yeah. That's why I was reading the same thing as well. Also, Ryan, I'm amazed you actually hadn't brought this up yet. But was that an appearance by Art the Clown? And is this a Terrifier prequel? Because there is a moment with so I believe it's flashback, but there's the mime.
Oh, the mime.
And then we get the mime, and I'm like, is this Art the Clown? Is this how it went bad? Is this how it all got started? Because the mime, I guess I get triggered by mimes now. Yeah. Because now this mime, he's got a trick of finger.
You just
There's another bit that actually had me really, really laughing hard was kind of when they play into the whole Riggs and Murtaugh thing, where it's like, all right, why don't you come back and meet my family, show you a little bit about how a great family dynamic works. His wife is just some sort of serial fucking hot wife that's just off fucking everybody. But it's the bit where the 16-year-old daughter starts playing footsie with him, then the 11-year-old boy, and then the fucking dog.
Yeah. The boy who looks, I swear, I was like, is that a young Tyler, the creator? But no,
that's what I thought too. I was like, oh shit, yeah.
Weird. I forgot about the boy. Like the boy was like, oh boy,
and he's looking.
Because it cuts to his face, and
he's doing the sexy eyes and stuff like that, and then the dog with the paw, and they kept it going. And I was like, that is some funny shit. That is funny.
they pull. It was going. It was like starts off creepy, gets creepier, and then that saves it. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because she brings home it's so fucking weird.
Yeah,
because I forget this is before Lethal Weapon 2 came out, right?
I think it was in between.
I think
2 and 3.
No, because we must have had because Lovitz doesn't come in until the third one, right? So I think the third one.
No, Lovitz is in the second one.
Okay,
not Lovitz. Sorry, Pesci.
John Pesci.
Jeez, my brain.
John Pesci.
John. It's me, John Pesci. But yeah, Joe Pesci's in the second Lethal Weapon.
And Leo Getz. Leo Getz, yeah, right.
But I mean,
I think the bit where Murtaugh is
okay.
He's stuck on. They have a bomb on the toilet. That's the second movie.
That's
right?
second. That's the second one.
Because I feel like I remember that being parodied in this movie for some odd reason.
Well, it did exactly.
Yeah.
It's the bit where he breaks in. He's like, "Is everything okay?" Yeah, I'm just taking a shit.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
He's like, "Oh, all right."
It's weird that those movies, like, it's how good they are. Like the scenes in them kind of blur together. You forget where the parody ends, and they
100%. That's when they're doing it well. But like, there was one of the most random background gag / cameos is Popeye.
Yeah.
You know, like he just gets walking by and it's like. And then he suddenly gets taken or whatever. Like, the other gag that I should have seen it coming. Like
scuba
I wrote
divers?
it down. The scuba divers.
Yeah, that's such a Naked Gun bit. Like,
yeah,
there are so many gags and bits in this where I'm like, that's such a Naked Gun. Like
Tim Curry in the chalk outline where he moves into it.
Yeah. It has that. That's what's like crazy. I had to look up. I'm like, I weirdly remember it being because back then I'm like, oh, all of these parody movies must be done by the same person, and I was shocked that this one wasn't the Zucker brothers film, but it still feels like very much like it.
It was like, and you're 100% right, and that's why like maybe it was just instead of doing its own thing, it's almost like it's shadow or a shade of another one, but. You know, the bit that there was another bit later that cracked me up, which is when he kicks the subtitles and like hurts his feet, you know, like great, you know, with the World War II German guys, you know, like
the Nazis, and it's like, it's a little too late to introduce this plot.
I love the bit when he brings her back to his place, and it's just, or even before that, it's just like an RV on the beach, and he walks into this like palatial castle.
Yeah, it's like something out of Harry Potter.
Stupid gag, but then.
Oh no, I was gonna say something about Kathy Ireland in this movie. One of my favorite bad movies of all time is a movie called Alien from LA. And she's the star in it, and her voice in that movie, like quite famously, is
dubbed by Corey Feldman.
Dubbed by Corey Feldman. No, it's like Minnie Mouse high, like in her that. So the whole movie is she's like, "What do you mean? There's a city under LA?" It's like that high. Great movie about it. If you haven't seen it, Albert Pune classic. Alien from LA. But this movie, she must have gotten some sort of acting training or something, because her voice is like not deep but normal, and it was throwing me off the entire time.
It has that like sultry thing voice. To it. Yeah, she's got a, because I remember her from Mom and Dad Save the World, which was going to be my outer space movie until I was talked out of it for doing Event Horizon. I forgot what I picked.
Interstellar.
That was your pick. No way I would have picked Interstellar.
You did Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, you begged us to do Star Trek. And we were like, fine.
Second visual gag for the listener.
Well, for me, it's like, so like, I was like, Kathy Ireland for me was a name that I'm like, okay, I'm familiar with it. And then I kept wondering, has she turned up in the movie? And then you get the gag of when she turns up is that whoever's
wear your hair down more often.
Yeah. So it's just, they're being played by this very funny bit. And then she takes her hair down and whips it. And suddenly she's Kathy Ireland. I go, oh, that's the chick. I remember her.
Yeah. Oh my
I never really grew up with her in movies.
Even
you know
before that, when they show up to the cookie factory and he's like, wait a minute, you see this like gorgeous silhouette of a woman from behind. He's like, wait a minute, aren't you that bucktooth freckled face, pigtail girl from when I went to school with? She goes, no. And it's just a stupid visual gag.
Yeah.
But it works.
And then there's some visual gag that he's doing the whole way in the background, walking in the corridor. Like I said, it was just it kept going. Like the one towards the end, again, it's stupid, but it's like it's the bad guys taking a ticket to who's going to fight him next, and every time he punches one, they go through a fucking pane of glass. Wait. Okay, now you can go.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. The panes of glass were great. Before that, when he's like shows up and Tim Curry's like, I've been expecting you, and he's just sitting there with a TV and snacks, and he just gets up. They have a fight, and he immediately falls to his death. He keeps getting exploded. Like, it's great.
Oh, Necessary Roughness. Okay.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
she's in that. All right. Yeah. Okay. I haven't seen most. Mum and Dad Saved the World, like you were saying, was the one before that. And then
another John Lovitz banger.
And then there's Once Upon a Christmas and Twice Upon a Christmas. She's 61 now, so she could have been in. The last real thing she did was 2001. So she's
A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. Then wow. She's the baby that's there. Yeah. She's the space baby.
Very versatile. Yeah.
She's a very sexy baby.
But so I'm gonna say this movie is definitely worth the watch. Yeah. It was funny. It's cracking me up. Like I said, I think it just came out at a time when there were too many of these movies being made. But I'm gonna say that it cracked me up. It was silly. It was funny. It's got so many great cameos. It's just an easy watch. That if you're one of the people that likes to watch movies that we watch in the pod, this is an easy watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. This is a fun time for sure.
Absolutely.
And very, very California movie, probably.
Well,
I don't even know.
I will say that while it was a fun watch, that if there is any movie that's going to bring the fun, and have the opportunity to dethrone Blade Runner, let's switch channels right now and watch let's watch
it.
The Rock.
Everyone listening at home,
we'll be back in about 2 hours, guys.
And we're back. Woo!
We'll leave the video playing while we go watch.
But
I could just have it on this TV right here.
I was so excited to watch it again. It's been a while. It's been a minute. And we were talking about The Rock honestly on our very first episode because we were doing Ambulance. Along with Heat and Point Break, we got into Ambulance, and we were kind of saying, because, as we were going to later discover when we got to Florida, that there's a certain level of Michael Bay where it's too much, where there is too much homophobia, too much sexism, it's just a bit too crazy. Whereas when it comes to The Rock, it's Michael Bay doing all the right things, I think, through the lens of Tony Scott with Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson behind him. Because as I'm watching this movie, I think one of the notes that I wrote, say violence, humor, no homophobia, no sexism. It's Bay's sweet spot. Also, this movie is funnier than I remember. There is a lot of humor in this movie, and I'm like, that's the one thing I kept coming back to. Is just this movie is funny. This movie is funny. Cage is funny.
You get the one bit with the very effeminate hairstylist.
Yeah, there's only one offensive stereotype.
But he does it so well. What are you going to say to like Picasso? No brush. I'm sorry, great line delivery. That guy wins it. But I knew we were in for something good. And I already know. I've only seen the movie a million times. But it's like the first thing I wrote down is like the first 7 names that appear on screen. It's just Connery, Cage, Ed Harris, Michael Biehn, William Forsythe, David Morse, John Spencer, John C. McGinley. I'm like, yes, absolutely. Let's watch this movie. This movie sounds fucking awesome. Guess what? It is. This movie still holds up. It's amazing.
I feel like they were running out of people, and they're like, "Give me the Candyman."
Is Tony Todd available? Yeah,
Tony Todd. The only one I didn't really recognize was the guy next to Tony Todd, who is the last one to be killed, where Nick Cage puts the thing in his mouth.
Guy with the gargantuan chin.
Who looks like Casey? He looks like Casey Neistat. I don't even know this.
It's like I'm trying to figure out who. Why was like? Because for me, I'm like I always recognized him too.
It looks like he's from something that I can't picture.
But I mean, what an insane like rogues gallery you have in henchmen in this movie. Like it's
Yeah.
stacked. It is stacked, and I don't think any other movie has come close to this as far as like enemies go.
Okay, so the guy we are talking about, internet, is a guy called Gregory Sporleader. And the thing is, when we get into it, we've seen him in lots of things. He's in A League of Their Own. He turns up in that. He's in True Romance. He's in Fatal Instinct. He's in Twister. Oh my god, he is in Twister, isn't he?
He's the F5 tornado.
Yeah, he's
Fatal Instinct, the movie I just mentioned.
Yes, he's in The Crazies, isn't that? Yes, he's in The Crazies, which we watched.
Another all-star.
Which he's in Black Hawk Down, Being John Malkovich, Never Been Kissed. So yeah, he turns up in a lot of stuff. But yeah, his chin does very much feature in this movie. And I find like they had to bring, like you said, they had to bring Candyman and him in to be the bad guys inside the bad guys, because the bad guys aren't really bad guys, even though they are really bad guys, because they do murder a whole bunch of Navy SEALs, like you know, and there are a whole bunch of people that break their oath against the United States for $1 million.
You also have. I know you haven't watched Breaking Bad, but you have the guy that plays Tuco Salamanca. He's got the little ponytail.
Oh yeah,
You may remember him as the sniper in that one Tom Clancy
in the Tom Clancy movie that I love, Clear and Present Danger. Absolutely. As soon as I see him, I'm like, oh, I know that guy.
Same ponytail, I think. Yeah.
So
you might remember the guy who does the VX poison gas speech from the guy who was shot by James Caan in The Eraser.
He is, yes. And that's one of my favorite lines. And that's where the humor sort of comes in. Is like, have you ever been in a situation like that? Or define action. It's like
define a combat situation.
Incursion into a highly secure, protected by the US Marine Corps with 15 things of VX poison gas. Oh, in that case, no. I'll be right back. Cut to vomit. You know, it's like it's just immediate gag. I'm like, this is what I'm saying. It's great. Now, but the very beginning. So if you haven't seen this movie, one, what the fuck have you been doing with your life? And how are you listening to a movie podcast if you've not seen The Rock? But it tells the story of a bunch of US Marines led by Ed Harris and his amazing blue eyes, basically who have felt that the Pentagon and the government have screwed them over, that many of their sort of Marine Force recon brothers have fallen, and they have never been, like, because it was black ops, so they never got their pensions, they never got their medals. And he's like, you know, too much blood's been spilled in the mud, and we're going to blackmail the US government by stealing VX poison gas missiles and aiming them at San Francisco after taking Alcatraz and the tourists on Alcatraz hostage. I have boiled down the movie. That is the movie. But it kicks off straight away. I've got it like, one, you can't have a funeral without the rain. You know, it's pissing rain. But it's like, it's the theme. As soon as the music starts kicking in, I am jacked. I'm fully erect.
It's so funny because like
at full staff.
I don't remember the theme to this one so much as I remember it so well in Broken Arrow. I don't know why. Like there's something about that guitar sting, like whereas this one I'm like, it's just reminding me of Broken Arrow, even though they're so different.
This one reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean at times.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. That's swell. Like,
It's like six.
It's the same. It's Hans Zimmer, right?
It's Hans Zimmer, yeah, for sure.
Yes, because I think it's him ripping himself off.
Right.
And
I mean, why not?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It is okay to rip oneself off. It's just self-pleasure. It is fine. It's like, and it just like it. Yeah, we get that cold open. We're established like, okay, this guy's a hero. We see him put down his Congressional Medal of Jesus. Favorite fucking line in the movie, by the way, which comes in later. But we then go immediately into that heist where these guys, they break into this secure facility. They're very, very specifically not killing people.
I noticed that this time too, yeah.
Though they do shoot a guy with a beanbag. Cool. He then falls out the window. Oh shit, guys! I killed the guy.
Into the open mouth of an alligator.
Yeah.
Now that's such like a loaded weapon gag too. Like, all right, guys, we're using non-lethal rounds. Yeah, he falls to his
falls into a dynamite factory.
But they're doing all of this. But the thing is, you know, and it's something that
it's ridiculous. There's parts of that where they have two pistols. It's a little video gamey, but the whole time, like, he should make a Splinter Cell movie. That'd be awesome.
it's very John Woo in a way when it comes to like, some of the gunplay. But all these guys are sort of being taken out. And as we established that we're going to be stealing this VX poison gas. Now we don't at this point really know what it is, but and that's what I keep writing down is stakes. They keep putting stakes in this movie, which is why you're like on the edge of your seat as it builds and builds and builds. So we don't know what this is, but we know it seems to be dangerous. And there's an accident right at the end. One of these little VX poison anal beads, it explodes. David Moore says, "Get out." And we watch this guy fucking melt.
They couldn't have put the most dangerous chemicals in the world in the most impractical,
right?
Like containers. This like very fragile. It might as well be in Saran wrap. This thing just rolls and just smashes.
Should have been in a Ziploc bag with a note.
I distinctly remember being like very terrified of this being a real thing.
Like, yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
It is. That's the worst part.
It was like it was quicksand, sharks, VX poison gas.
VX poison gas.
That's it.
But this is like in minute 5, minute 6, right? And we've now established this thing's fucking horrible. And because it's R-rated, we watch this guy melt.
Literally melt, yeah.
And so now we're like, well, shit, these stakes are way up there. And then we just smash cut to a couple of nerds who are just like, Washington DC nerds. And then they go, oh, no. And they just put the stakes up again because before we know it, because Bosnia and Serbia and everything else that's going on, we get this crazy scene with like diffusing a bomb.
Yeah.
That's also like, it's got another gas that's melting through our suits. And I'm like,
stakes. Watching this again, for some reason, I thought this, like that scene was like a test for some reason, but in reality, I'm like, oh no, they just got sent a fucking care package of anthrax or whatever it was. I thought it was like a test. I forgot about that.
But what I was noticing on this watch is how well they do sort of establish that Stanley might be kind of like Stanley Goodspeed, great name, right? He might be a bit of an everyman, he might be a bit of a nerd, but as it goes on, it establishes that he's still like pretty ballsy. Like, there's he is, he's diffusing this bomb, no problem. Then it comes to like later on, which we'll get to it, when he's chasing down, Connery. He's the only one.
The car. Okay,
and he's like, oh, well, why not? And he just goes and goes and goes for it. And when it comes down to it, at the end, it's like, well, no one else is going to do it, only me. It's not like it's established that he is a bit of a badass, even though he is also a bit of a nerd that's never sort of been at.
He's just never been in combat. That's it.
He's never gone to anti-terrorist school. So.
But he fucks the prom queen, so
absolutely.
Things are right.
So I did write like Nicolas Cage is the only guy to be bald and have a full head of hair at the same time. Like he's got hair.
Possibly Sean Connery too.
Yeah.
This is the movie of really good hair pieces.
Yes. Sean Connery's entire career was.
I'm like,
rugs.
That's what. That's if I pull my hair down, I look like strung out 30-year prisoner Sean Connery. Kind of the look I'm going for.
Ryan, I heard it's a grunge thing. There's so much. The thing is, like, another thing that like I didn't remember is how long it takes to get to the Rock. Like for the movie to get there, we get like, so all right, we get the sort of setup, and then we get the guys taking Alcatraz kind of thing, but we then have the whole let's discover Sean Connery. I'm going to be doing this with the entire episode, by the way. But then it's like, then it's the briefing, and then it's the how to. And it's like, it takes almost half the movie before we actually end up on the Rock and things start going crazy.
The only thing that like, it's unfortunate, like the only thing that could have made this any better is if they hid the fact that it was going to be Sean Connery in this movie. Granted, he's on all the posters and everything, but like the reveal that like, oh shit, James Bond himself is the guy that they need. That's fucking rad.
And I'm with Will. He was mentioning on the text thread, and there is this sort of like a rumor online that many people are ascribed to, and I am on board. But this is secretly a James Bond sequel. That he is Bond. That he was captured, and this is the final James Bond movie for his Bond. And I'm like, when you watch it, you're like, yeah.
I remember you guys saying that, and I watched it this time through that lens, and it made this perfect movie somehow even more enjoyable.
Yeah, it does.
And I think that's definitely part of the intention. I know, like, originally that wasn't, because I think originally they were going after Schwarzenegger for that role. And so I think, even Arnold himself is like, I don't think I'm right for this.
I can't hear him doing an Irish accent.
You mean Scottish?
We'll edit that out.
So the Soviet accent.
But who else? Like, I'm wondering.
But
do you have like a list of who else?
I have to call out Ryan's amazing joke when we were talking about how it was a sequel Bond movie, and he goes, "Yeah, they almost called it Never Say Never Again."
I fucking forgot I said
I
that.
lost my shit.
That's the poster. There you go.
That's the title of the movie in South America. Is
the Ghana poster for The Rock is just
Yeah.
every James Bond shooting each other.
So another thing I looked up. So this was very much like Connery. That's the thing. We talked about the same thing with Hunt for Red October. This guy, even in his 60s, is fucking awesome and just sexy as hell. Like it's outrageously. But in this movie, so I did the googlies. He's 64, so he's essentially 2 years older than Tom Cruise is now. You know, Brad Pitt, Keanu Reeves kind of vibe. Like,
yeah, for sure.
But he's got some miles on him. Like, even though he's still amazing and looks great, he looks 40 years older than Tom Cruise does.
He looks fantastic. But you can see a lot of like the stunt doubling over in this. Like there's like when he's going down the escalator, I think in the initial chase, the foot chase, there's that. There's also bits where like I've seen so many like newer action films now where they like really train people how to use these firearms. There's bits in this where no one's aiming down sights. They're just like hip firing. And I was like, it's still very much a 90s action movie.
One of the best shots of the movie, though, is the shot that goes right down to his eye when he lines up on good speed. And he's on good speed. I'm not going to shoot you. I've got to stop doing it. I can't do it, guys. I can't stop because I've even written down my favorite line in the movie was, I need a shower, a shave, and the feel of a shoot. I'm like, guys, why do you keep giving him S's? But no, one thing, so like I was saying earlier, through the lens of Tony Scott, once we get to those Alcatraz establishing shots, right, you know about the end of that one. Well, yeah, it's kind of before that when we like just the camera's going around and you've got like that filter on the camera where the sun is setting, and I go, oh, it's the Tony Scott kind of school of filmmaking. We've got Ranger Bob bringing the comedy, and this is where I also had this note, which is just some scene-stealing day players, being like some of the guys who are hostage. One is, what kind of fucked up toy is this? I mean,
that's Linnell, right?
And then the
comedian.
I'm not sure. And then the other one was the woman who's like talking to Bob. Yeah. Like, you know, like, I got a goddamn gun. If I knew this was going to have my motherfucking gun. Help! Like, just the timing of these two moments is just like brilliant. Just they steal, you know, Ranger Bob and those two steal those scenes. Mm-hmm. They've got their two lines, and they just roll with it.
That's such a Michael Bay thing. Like looking back to the video store scene in Bad Boys 2, like, y'all motherfuckers need Jesus. Like he's got to have that one like sassy black lady zinger in there.
Now, I will say real quick aside that I watched the first 10 minutes of Bad Boys 4 because Ryan was talking about it. That was really good. But then it cut to some British chick, and I'm like, was she in the third one? So I guess I have to go back. Right.
I did the same
thing. I stopped, and I'm like, I have to watch Bad Boys 3 first before I can watch Bad Boys 4. But Bad Boys 4 first 10 minutes was brilliant.
I think I watched them back to back in the same day because we were just talking about those directors. Right?
Guess I know what I'm doing tomorrow. That's what I'm going to do. So then also another iconic actor for me as someone that watched every single episode of The West Wing, John Spencer. He's great as Walmack, you piece of shit. He's just a great bad guy in this particular, just a bit of like, you know, and really good at sort of like giving us a little bit of the flavor of Sean Connery, like to that point that when we get the voiceover, he's like, he was a British secret agent for 30 years. He's an expert.
Doesn't exist. Yeah, he keeps saying he doesn't exist over and over again. Like,
right.
So there's bits I've got written down. So one is when it's like that guy who everyone's making fun of. I guess he's like basically a White House rube, but he's going through all the stuff that he's got, and he's like Silver Star, Bronze Star, you know, Purple Heart, this, that, and the other, and the Congressional Medal of Jesus. And I've always loved that line.
That's not a real medal?
It will be soon.
It will be pretty soon.
Oh boy.
But then there's a bit like I always wondered about, like, I remember watching this movie that they're asking about, right? These guys are just asking fucking questions about VX poison gas, and everyone in the room is an expert or they work for the military, and they're going, all right, so how many people do we think could be like, you know, killed by this, you know, one of these things? He goes 60 or 70. And he goes,
oh, that's not so bad.
And he goes, 1,000. I go, why are you being a dick about it? You said 60 or 70. And they go, 1,000, you fucking moron. I'm like,
boom, got it. Yeah. This isn't a fucking open mic night, guy. Like,
it's like, what the fuck? What do we make jokes about?
That's the thing, too.
Burned, you nerd.
It's already established how dangerous this chemical is in such a small space. And then he's like, no, it's even worse when it's exploded in
the
air.
atmosphere.
And then even like it comes back later when Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage are like diffusing the bomb together. And one of my favorite scenes, the two of them, where he's like, he has him hold this and he's just like, back away, like the dynamic of them
just
together.
back away.
And Sean Connery is just like, I gotta do what with this thing?
But like but again, I'm writing it. Is it the stakes keep building up? Because now it's like, all right, well, hang on. Not only do they have VX poison gas, we don't know how to take it. The only way we can take it out is thermite plasma. Thermite plasma isn't even operational. It's only in the test phase. So we're putting all these ticking clocks involved. And so we had to come up with a backup plan, which is the Navy SEALs. And who do they bring out? Michael fucking Bean. Oh, just
Mr. Bean himself.
Just Mr. Bean in a piece of perfect casting.
Yeah.
Absolutely crushing.
I gotta be honest. I hate that scene, like in the showers. Like, I don't like that they all die. I don't like
Of course
that.
not. No, you're not supposed to.
I love all these guys.
And I'm almost like, I'm watching it and I'm rewatching it again. It was like, I cannot give that order. I'm like, you can. You can, you can lay your weapons down and you can be captured because you're all about to fucking die. Like, just FYI, bad situation.
I mean, you just get lost in Ed Harris's eyes, and you're like, I want these cool like gray army fatigues. Like, all right, let's fucking do this.
But I've got my next note is they shot the fuck out of San Francisco and Alcatraz for this movie. It is like, just when I visited San Francisco at 16 for the first time, and then we sailed around Alcatraz with my godfather. But like, I recognized San Francisco because this movie exists. Because I'd seen it 100 times. That building, there's the trolley and stuff like that. It's just like burned into my memory. This is San Francisco for me, and William Forsythe. Like, because he turns up in a bunch of movies, and in fact, one that's going to be happening next week. Spoiler alert, guys. But is that
Stone Cold?
Whenever I see him in a movie, I go, "Oh, it's the guy from The Rock."
Yeah,
because he's just always like he's got his lines. You know what I mean? Well, you still got a little lead in your pencil. You know what I mean? He's just got such.
Also in the Rob Schneider movie where he's like the pimp, right?
Yeah, I believe
where he's like,
is it the Deuce Bigelow one?
That's it. Yeah. He's like, can't pleasure his wife or something. It's I just know him from that.
That's him. I see. I know him from this. If this is a real deep '90s cut. If anybody remembers the '90s TV version of The Untouchables, he was Scarface Al Capone in that. That's where I first saw him.
Yeah, guy's great. The guy is fucking great. I love him.
And he's
great villain face.
Yeah, and but he's really good in this movie. He plays a great helping. He's kind of sarcastic, but he's good. He's like, you need to fucking tell me what's going on.
I'm so used to seeing him as like a villain. So to see him in this as like a good guy, I'm like, I like it. I'm into that.
I like it too. Now, I think this movie is like, it's got a certain flair. It's got a certain panache to it. And there's a moment that I've always remembered. I made sure I noted it down this time, that just for the effort of, it's the bit where William Forsythe is playing a little bad cop with Sean Connery, who's like just being in the thing. And he goes, here's a quarter, call your lawyer, you're going back to jail.
Ooh, that shot.
It's 3 shots of a quarter landing on spin off the table, and you even get the sound of
ting, ting.
And I'm like, it's just 3 shots for that, and it looks great. And I always, as a kid, I loved that little sequence of like, when you're watching, and I'm always in my head, as a kid, even now, it's like, I've always wished I could make a movie or suit. But that's that little thing of like, wow, you take 3 shots, very, very specifically planned. You get very, very specific sound effects laying on top of it just to follow it, because it's also establishing how he's going to use
it. That's such a testament to him as like a commercial director too. Like those particular shots, like that's where that really comes into play. Those like really key inserts, and the sound design is awesome. But yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, ooh, this shot is too good for a fucking quarter to bounce on the table and then on the floor. But it's like such an important, plot device for it. That's how he gets something. The bit where they're all in the other room and no one is fucking looking at this criminal who's like escaped from countless prisons. They've just like turned their backs. He's just walking around with this cup of coffee. I love it.
Well, and then there's humor in that scene, like with Nicolas Cage, like when he goes in and he goes, I'm Stanley Goodspeed. They go, well, at least he got his name right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, same thing with like, can we take off his braces? And the guy behind goes, who's the guy from Sex and the City who's only got one line? But he's like, that's one way to die. What's one way to die, I guess? Because it's just bringing us the humor and the gags and like the Nick Cage being kind of like comedy relief. at the same time. Even
he's so like oddly like his manicness in this, you can see it like the genesis from like this to Con Air to Face Off. Like this era of those movies, you don't have them anymore. You don't have the chemistry of the star power chemistry of a Nicolas Cage and a Sean Connery together. Like, what's the closest you get? Gran Torino? Like, what? You don't have that shit.
Yeah, I don't even know what the equivalent to that would be. I guess it would be, again, Pierce Brosnan and who's a weirdo leading
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage as Longlegs.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
I guess.
I'm just
thinking about like, because I mean, at its core, this is just like another like Die Hard in a thing. You know, it's just Die Hard in a prison, but it does it so fucking well.
Well, I would say no. I'd say I understand your point, but I'd say you're taking some Die Hard, but you're also throwing in some speed. You know, it's like, because like I said, had it only existed on Alcatraz,
it's got the ticking clock for sure.
We've got that first half of the movie when we're also now he breaks out of the hotel. Now we've got a foot chase. Now we've got a fight. Now he takes the Humvee. Now we've got a car chase. You know, and it's giving us everything.
In 5 minutes, he learns that A, car phones exist. B, this Humvee has a car phone. C, he's like, I can use this car phone to find out where my daughter is. That's like, the amount of plot they condense into what happens in this chase is awesome. I do love the camera work of him clearly driving the Humvee. It's just like the camera's just zooming back and
forth. Thank you.
Right.
That's something I've always referenced as the Rock car chase camera movie. Yeah. So that's where it came from for me as a kid, and I always found it because they're doing it William Forsythe. Yeah. They're doing it William Forsythe, and they're just like, they're moving the camera it's hitting every fucking thing in sight, trying to block us, and they're doing it with Sean Connery. But then it's that moment of like all of the noise and the cacophony. Suddenly it just goes quiet, and there's the phone, and he answers it, but the camera is still doing this. He's like, I'm only borrowing a Humvee, and I'm like, it's. I liked it as a filmmaking choice as a kid because people weren't really doing that, and it kind of felt like you were in it. But then it's funny how things date, because, you know, then it got to the point of the next time you got Nicolas Cage in like Gone in 60 Seconds, it's him locked off camera inside the car. And then you've got that, when it got to the Bourne Supremacy, you've got that rig.
Is just that. Yeah.
But what I mean is
that car chase was the entire film.
Well, what they did though was the rig for the Bourne Supremacy was that they now could put people in the car, but the person is driving on top. And you can put camera placements, but have them in the actual stunt driving situations, even have a car hit into them. They use the same rig for the Dukes of Hazzard. But it's like, it's watching how you know, you see the progression, and then you get to John Wick 4, and you've got Keanu Reeves just doing everything, you know, with the camera just sort of looping around. Absolutely fucking fantastic.
Looking back to like old James Bonds to when he was driving, it's just all rear projection.
Yeah.
It's like, they should have just done the same thing.
That would have been, and they used the background from Dr. No. There's also a very famous shot, a very famous Michael Bay shot that then turns up in Bad Boys 2, and Hot Fuzz.
The best line of the movie, arguably, is like, you just fucked up your Ferrari. It's not mine. It's not like I watched that. I'm like, that line's not funny anymore.
And then he's like, okay. And then neither's this, and then he steals the kid's bike.
Yeah, so he can disarm these bombs. Like, he's a nerd, but he can ride this fucking dirt bike. Like, okay.
Yeah. He can drive a Ferrari and jump it through a window. That's what I mean. He can go and have gunfights with U.S. Marines. He can take out Marines. Stanley Goodspeed's a badass. It's just because he's next to Sean Connery the entire time.
It skirts the line of him just being like a really wet behind the ears rookie to being like very capable of doing all of these things. He just happens to be a chemicals expert.
Well, and also he's having a very normal reaction. Like, I have to go under the water with a bunch of Navy SEALs. He goes and throws up, and he's like, I feel like my stomach's doing the...
Yeah, and then William Forsythe is like, it's gonna be okay. You'll be all right. But then you're training, it'll kick in.
He's sitting on the helicopter, and his legs bouncing and stuff like that. And then, you know, they got the comedy bits of, you know, he turns on the air, and it's, you know, gets on it, and then the bit when everyone's like, good to go, and he's going, oh, good to go. It's just joke.
Yeah.
But he at the same time is a capable guy. I think it's a really, it's... Of all,
he's got it's the manic energy that adds to that too. It's that the rage cage, so to speak.
He plays it perfect, and I think it's like, well, like I said, we always say it. Watching a movie, you get to see it again. I'm watching this going, the characterization of Goodspeed is top notch. And like the introduction to his sort of slow, sort of like, okay, he's actually able to do this is top notch, as opposed to just you see someone and suddenly they're John McClaning it, in the White House with White House Down or whatever. In this case, is like
or it's like the MacGruber where he doesn't know how to operate firearms and just accidentally kills everyone.
Right. Yeah, I think and I think that just the way Nicolas Cage is performing too, because I don't think this would work with like another actor. You need somebody who can convincingly be a nerd, but also really like in charge of the situation. My favorite is always at the end with Tony Todd, and he's like, do you like Rocket Man?
Yeah.
I don't like that soft shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's so clunky.
Ridiculous. It's so
such
silly.
a long way to get to that.
Yeah. And he has to like walk around to stand directly in front of the. I never like that. But I was thinking too, because we had just watched,
he sells it.
He does. But I was thinking, just because we had done Broken Hour for this, I'm like, yeah, I could see Christian Slater type in this. I couldn't see anyone other than Sean Connery doing this role.
No, I mean he's an executive producer on this one as well. I mean, like it's just like he is ideal. He is absolutely perfect casting, and he is crushing it in this movie. It's one of.
I'm curious if they have like on that IMDb thing if they had like who else they're recording for this film, right? You mentioned Schwarzenegger. I'm like, yeah, I could kind of see him. It'd be a very, very different movie though.
I think the other one was Estelle Getty and Dame Judi Dench.
Hang on, Kathy Ireland, sure.
Kathy Ireland, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I just remember because I just heard Schwarzenegger tell that story.
Because we went through the list like for Face Off, where it's Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Pacino, De Niro, like all
like literally everybody who was famous and A-list at the time.
But I can't picture anyone else. Like the charm of this movie is gone without Sean Connery in that role.
And I think it definitely elevates this movie to. I mean, I'm just reading here, Quentin Tarantino, uncredited screenwriter, along with Aaron Sorkin as well. No wonder it's funny.
Well, that's why Leo McGarry's in this movie.
And this is this is also the movie that killed Don Simpson, I guess, because he did die.
Good. No.
This is like back in the time when I was like really not like as versed in movie knowledge. And I would just associate like Simpson and Bruckheimer as like the director of all of these movies. Right. That's just how my brain worked. I'm like Days of Thunder, Top Gun. Like I was like, oh, I didn't know that there were directors that worked with these, that they were just producers. I was like, oh shit, this is like the lightning bolt hitting the tree. That's one of these movies.
I do like this random fact. The guy that gets his car stolen by Sean Connery is the same guy that gets his car stolen by Ed Harris in National Treasure Book of Secrets, which is another Bruckheimer and Cage production. So they go,
okay.
What do I do? No, I get my car stolen in Hollywood. That is what I do.
Okay.
I just always figured that guy was like, I remember when I was younger, is that like Paul Verhoeven or something? Because it's like some random European guy that's really prevalent in a movie. I'm like, okay, must just be some guy. I'm not seeing anything other than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
Honestly,
I mean, it makes sense. Like then this movie does not get made without Sean Connery in it.
It is
unless Nicolas Cage plays both parts.
And I'm on board. So where are we at? So we got the 360, the VX poison gas. So then this movie has there is, and again, all right, this is still The Rock, but there is one part of this movie that I'm just like, okay, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Which is
there's no Alcatraz.
It's how to get into The Rock is through a flame just rotating, just like
the tumbling inferno.
What kind of furnace works like that? No. We only need half a cook, the other half. So just in case someone needs to roll underneath it, and we need to shoot some fire.
It's like a stage 9 Super Mario Brothers level where it's just the flames are shooting out, the thing is rotating, you have to time it, and all he's got is a fucking ski mask that he cut holes into. Like
he looks cool as shit.
Was that his from 30 years ago?
That's
I sure hope they didn't change the timing. I'm like, fuck, man, it's a good chance they did.
And it's in reverse, so good luck. But for me, I was like, it was like that scene in Galaxy Quest. Where they come around and it's just like the chompers or whatever, and they're like, "Well, fuck that!" And
it's like, this here,
why kill the writers for this episode?
That's funny.
But then it's bookended with he comes out and goes, "Welcome to the Rock."
Oh, for sure. That's such a trailer line too. I think, right?
It's just like boom, just crush it. Yeah. So I'm like,
every line he delivers is like, it's like you doing a Sean Connery impersonation in my head. Like, it's so Sean Connery over the top that it's hard to believe it's even him doing it.
Oh, he just can crush some lines, man. And then, like, again, I'm always saying is like, is there like a band playing or something nearby? Like, you keep muting your mic.
Oh yeah, sorry. There's washing machines going on.
He's watching The Rock right now.
I can tell you, we can't hear it, so don't you worry. Yeah. But there's, and it, like I keep bringing it back, and this is why I think that people need to watch The Rock more, is because they then keep rocking up with the stakes, because then you get a situation where we talked about it, where the Navy SEALs get killed, right? But then we need Connery to have motivation. Well, his daughter is in the city, and then same thing for Nicolas Cage. His fiance, frustrated, like, "Oh, I'm coming," hangs up the phone, and you do see him later on, keeps trying to call her. He's like, "All right, Christ." Yeah. But yeah, so now you've got your family members, your pregnant fiance, you've got your daughter in the city. Now it's like, it's not just like, it's just constant stakes.
And that's before Sean Connery knows that how devastating this gas can be.
He's only like halfway through the mission, but he's like, all right, no, wait, what are you, like, chemical weapons? What is this stuff? And he goes, this will melt you. This will destroy, this will kill everybody in the city. He's like, you could have fucking told me. And I'm like,
one drops, it kills the two of us in this room. A rocket goes off, it kills millions. Like,
and that's what I think about, that just works about this movie, to the point of, you know, that gives us the information as we need. Like, we're on the helicopter and he's like, pop green smoke if we've got it, stab yourself in the heart, you know, if you need to take the gas. You know, I was like, just by the way, might be important in the last 5 minutes of this movie. But like,
well, he has there's the scene earlier where he's got to inject his partner's got to inject himself.
Yeah,
almost has to.
But let's just, you know, let's jump ahead and just talk about that, because for me, whenever I think about The Rock, I think about the first time I saw it, and I think about how when we get to the end, those last 5 minutes, I was on the edge of my seat of how are they going to do this? Yeah. How are they going to get away with it? And you've got these great, I mean, again, fantastic shots of like the glint of the sunlight coming off the canopy of an F-18 cool. in the distance. And it's like, you realize, okay, he's done it and he stopped the rocket, but wait a minute, the jets are coming. Okay. And then he's like, oh, he's moving in slow motion. Oh, he's popped the green smoke, but no one's seen him. And then they're counting it down. 10 seconds, 5 seconds. And it's like, they pull green smoke. And then they drop the bomb and they go, it's too late. I already dropped it. And I remember in the movie just going, how is, and then it explodes. And I go,
it just napalms.
Did we kill them? You know?
What, you've never injected yourself in the heart, lay down on your knees, hold up 2 green flares and went, ah. It's intense. Like that scene is so iconic of him on his knees with the flares and the fucking planes shooting up. So fucking cool.
It is. Oh my God. Cool. Such a great shot. But like, it's just the absolute tension of those last 2-3 minutes is a masterpiece of editing. It's bloody well shot. They got the coverage. They got everything they needed. Even until the very last second, you're convinced, oh no. And then it's like, and then it's just, absolute.
I love the whole thing, action. like the whole internal struggle of the mercenaries. When it gets to the point, he's like, "Nope, they called our bluff. Let's get out of here." Like, it's just like, "Man, we're done." They're like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And then that whole thing transpired. Like, that whole scene is so funny to me that he's like, "What do you want? They called our bluff." And that the movie's dodgeball ending.
Well, I say, but like I was sort of saying earlier, is they needed to bring in bad guys for the bad guys, which are guys who are like, yeah, no, well, we're not Marines anymore. We're fucking mercenaries. We're here for the money. And he's like, look,
there is no money.
Like, do you really think I'm gonna kill a couple of million people? Do you think I'm fucking crazy? And they're just like, we're gonna be the best we can be, sir. You know, let's.
I mean, I signed the contract, so
it begs the question. After you steal the VX, if your intention is never to use it, why don't you, after you steal it, you like destroy it or dispose of it, and then pretend like you have? If your intention is to never use it, why is it still there then?
Shut up, Will.
It's like, wait a second.
It's a really good point. You could steal it and then just have a bunch of missiles with nothing in them.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We'd now
so ruined the movie. Just having the fucking back of a U-Haul, like somewhere at the pier. Like, what are you talking about?
I mean, you know, that's just the only thought I had with this time around. I was like, well, wait a minute.
If only we had a MythBuster on this episode. all of the
quick, but we don't. So this movie's 100% accurate.
I'll text Carrie. How does VX poison gas work?
Asking for a friend.
but yeah, no, this like it's really interesting that then, like, so they've got a pretty good motivation for our bad guys, but the bad guys' motivations are good. When it comes down to, are they really going to be bad guys? No. He's like, I'm not going to actually kill people.
Yeah, you can't have Ed Harris in that role as like a national terrorist. It just doesn't
right
because he's a hero, right? But then you kind of get that. I think it's kind of interesting how they sort of play off his death, that the guys kind of let it play out, and then they go in and they pull him out of the firefight. But it's just he dies like so many of his men have died, as he's just sort of, he kind of just falls over to the side as some random soldier he doesn't know, Sean Connery, is kind of like engaged in a firefight. And I thought, like, that's a really good way of doing it. Like other movies would draw it out, or he'd have like a speech while he's coughing up blood or whatever. And it's just kind of like his him dying.
I did think it was weird that Sean Connery grabs him. He's like, "Where's the microfilm, Mike?" Wrong movie.
Wildly out of character.
They should have played out that scene like with Emilio Estevez and Kathy Ireland when she's like coughing up blood. He said, "Kiss me," and he's like, no.
Another thing, not to jump back, but the other thing we didn't mention about National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, this is the last time to say it, is the Scotty cameo when he's like got the cappuccino machine.
I can't do it, Captain.
Give her all she's got. Yeah.
But with The Rock, it's from beginning to end, apart from Will destroying it now. Thanks a lot, Will. It's like,
what I do.
it's the perfect prototypical action movie.
Yeah, it's great.
I still say the best action comedy ever made is True Lies. It's just not even close. There's that and every other
movie. That movie's a lot funnier. It's got
because it is comedy, whereas this one is a movie I remember being action packed, but I forgot
the stakes
how funny.
Feel very real in this movie versus like True Lies feels like way more of a cartoon, I guess.
Yeah, in a good way though. Like
I love True Lies, love it. But this movie, like I look back in that era, like this is probably the best action film of that time period, I think.
It's interesting. Okay, so I'm getting into a little bit here because I had been reading about how like they were like, okay, we could just do some interiors or something around Alcatraz, and Michael Bay was, no, this island, we're going to shoot the fuck out of it. It looks amazing. Because though it was governed by the National Park Service, it wasn't possible to close it, so they had to shoot around tour parties. Can you imagine, like being on a tour and just explosions and just gunfire and stuff? Ranger Bob going, "It's fine, don't worry about it. It's all good."
That sounds awesome.
It does. But but it is like, so it's shot on Alcatraz, the Fairmont Hotel. They shot that.
That must have been a fucking like a nightmare to film there.
Getting to and from the set every day, that's
I don't know how far of a trip that is. I've never taken that tour.
Far enough that you can't just get a cab. You got to take a ferry to then get your cab.
Well, sure, but it's not like we're swimming it.
But they shoot all through the cities. You've got the car chase going through the cities. It is very much like, if we're bringing the California into this conversation, which I think
can't make this movie anywhere else. Like you can't.
Well, exactly. They've picked it because they've picked just such an iconic place with its own iconic history. About like, did people really escape or not? And then going, oh, how about if we took a guy that it's just. Whoever came up with this, I'm like, guys, what a great premise for a movie.
Exactly. I'm like, the prison setting for it is already so perfect, and then you just dump it on Alcatraz Island with this place of mystery, and like no one's ever escaped except for Clint Eastwood, obviously.
Right.
Who it was like, you should probably have him in this movie. Like, get Clint Eastwood in there.
That is actually surprising that the filmmakers didn't at some point try to make that connection. And
Dirty Harry himself,
as Ranger Bob.
Yeah. Wow. But that is interesting that didn't apparently cross any of their minds to be like, well, what if this is a sequel to Escape from Alcatraz?
Yeah, you do get the Dirty Harry line in Loaded Weapon 1. Who's like, I know what you think, punk. Did I fire 175 times? 176?
This movie was a joy to watch, and I'm like, for two movies, like I said, we did go a bit random with Loaded Weapon. I'm just glad we did because it was funny. But The Rock is it is movies, it is cinema, it is movie stars, it is a birth of a new movie star in the style of Nicolas Cage transferring into action. which then gave us Con Air and gave us Face Off and gave us, all these like crazy. Because up until this point, everyone's like, Nick Cage,
Yeah.
action movie?
The Coppola?
And then everyone's like, no, we want more of that. Let's do it. I'll show you God does exist.
Yeah. Give me more Mandy. Yeah.
It's, but yeah, absolutely dope movie. So let's get into the weeds, guys. We do have the big question, because there's no argument that this movie is amazing, but so is Blade Runner. And there's no argument that that there's a very much an LA feel, like in every way, when it comes to Loaded Weapon. So the big question is, right, when, like I said, we got into Blade Runner, and I was saying at the beginning that sort of Carrie's sort of argument for it was that it's very much, as someone who lives in San Francisco and is all like surrounded by Silicon Valley, and she's seeing these self-driving Johnny cabs and stuff going all over San Francisco, and you've got that sort of,
she gets her VX poison gas from Alcatraz. Yeah. Sure, yeah.
But it's like, there's that element, right? But,
I like the grounded nature of this. Like, I was thinking about that too. I hold Blade Runner as like, okay, that is very much a sci-fi film, whereas this is so much more grounded in like a real world San Francisco. Like, I'm not saying this could potentially happen, but
yeah.
Well, this week.
I think because of like how this movie is filmed, it literally can't take place anywhere else, and then they film it there so much. You get such a tour of San Francisco in this movie, albeit through a car chase. It's really awesome, but it does take you through the iconography of the city. This feels much more, especially over Loaded Weapon 1, feels much more.
Yeah, for sure. You get the shot when they're at the Fairmont. This is
Northern California for sure.
You get the shot when they're at the Fairmont, like on the balcony, like overlooking all of downtown San Francisco. I thought that was really fucking cool.
And you got an actual stuntman hanging off the actual Fairmont. You know what I mean? It's like there's some bloody great, location. And you get so many of those things. Like I said, like, when I went to San Francisco, it's like, oh, that's where they put the camera, where they could see the trolley and Alcatraz in the background. Like, picking out places that I knew.
Right.
They put the camera right here.
Blade Runner, you don't get like a Blade Runner walking tour, because none of that looks like,
they
unless you're in the Bradbury building 75 years from now or whenever that.
Well, I will tell you this much. I did kind of do a walking tour of where it was, because when I was shooting one of my TV shows in Asia, this thing Sony Style, we got to go to, I think, where the Columbia studio, Sony Pictures was. They were shooting Men in Black 3 at the time. I remember Will Smith walking past. But at the time, I also had a Hollywood lawyer. He worked on Blade Runner. So he was a lawyer involved in Blade Runner. And the part where you first walk in, and they basically you can rejig it into any sort of city scene or anything.
Oh, okay.
But that's where all of, the light up umbrellas and the rain and that's where they shot Blade Runner. So I was like, oh, I had my own, that's Blade Runner. Of course, it didn't look anything like it, but technically you can.
I am in the market for some new eyeballs.
From Hong Like a Horse.
Yeah, from James Hong himself. But even though you still don't get like nobody in Blade Runner goes to Pink's Hot Dogs. Like nobody's, going to anything like that. That's like an LA staple.
It would be hilarious if like Randy's Donuts was just popped up.
Yeah, that would be phenomenal.
It's just like a giant LED donut. Like that'd
nobody's eating it. Nobody's eating at Langer's Deli. There's like no like iconic. I only know food spots. That's in my neighborhood. That's the only thing I go to here. But there's nothing like that in Blade Runner. Whereas
and
the
Rock thing too. Yeah, the Rock. I mean, the Rock. You have. That's really all you get is that downtown. I guess you get the park too. The park.
The Palace of Fine Arts.
Where one of my favorite throwaway, like the actress who's like. What's his daughter's name? Is it Claire?
Yeah. Well, it's Claire Forlani as the character.
Oh, right. Claire Forlani. I forget his daughter's name in it.
Angelou or something like that. She is Jade Angelou.
He goes, Jade? And then her friend goes,
No. Stacy. That's
Jade. Completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
She was definitely somebody, she's probably, I don't know, banging the director or something. He's like, oh, it's somebody's friend or daughter. It's always like that when you're like, why did that person randomly have a line? And it's like,
I only noticed that this time around, like, why were you like, I get you're there because you didn't want to go alone, but for her to have a full fucking 2 lines of the Sean Connery, come on.
And then we get like the history of like, let's not romanticize it. You broke out of broke out of prison, went to a Grateful Dead concert, and banged my mum in the
Led
bathroom.
Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, I did actually. That is something I was like listening for this time because I couldn't remember the band name. Because famously in Goldfinger, there's the throwaway line where James Bond, old man, complains about the Beatles. About how much he thinks their music sucks, and so for this movie, I'm like, wait, what concert was it? Was it a Beatles concert? Because
that'd be funny. Yeah. I do like the idea of him breaking out of prison. Go like, make that movie. Like,
yeah, bring it out, and then goes to what was it again? Led Zeppelin. Yeah.
Well, you see, in Europe, it was the Grateful Dead. It's kind of like the Pizza Hut, Taco Bell thing.
Oh my God.
From Demolition Man.
I just picturing Sean Connery at a Grateful Dead concert is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I was at an 11-hour Fish concert.
So. I'm picking up that I think we may be on board that The Rock.
A movie so good that a famous wrestler used it as his name to launch his career.
John
actually,
Cena.
See, that was the annoying part. Actually, is that I when I typed The Rock into Google to find the movie, I couldn't.
It's the Rock feed pics.
I had to, yeah, it auto completed. I'd already been there.
Well, I bet you auto completed.
So I think because this movie ruled, that I think we've finally here we go, but we're going to take away.
Just realizing I like both of these movies. I remember specifically watching with my dad. That's fucking cool.
That's great. So
he loved the Humvee scene.
Is this our first? So season 2, episode 1, we've returned to California and we're crowning a new champion.
We're gonna have to have Carrie come back and do another California Challenge episode.
Yeah, I think
pick another San Francisco movie.
She's got a bunch.
Harry or something. I don't know.
I was like, what was the other one? Like the one people afraid of heights. What do you call it? Vertigo and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's a bunch. In fact, okay. Yes. So first of all, let's make it official that here at the United States of a movie that we now here in the state of California have crowned The Rock as the movie to define California for the rest of time, or at least until we come back to it with a challenge episode or season 3 and find something better. This is it. The Rock is the movie that defines California. But of course, guys, we have to talk about the Also Rans. Now, we've had a couple that we've already mentioned, like their first Fast and Furious was brought up. Any other ones, that we're sort of we were kind of circling that we think maybe we'd want to return to?
I mean, I had mentioned, because I'd never seen Chinatown or LA Confidential.
Yes.
There's a couple.
Yes.
We did mention Friday. I was like, oh, let's do something a little more a little more edgy. I think I mentioned the movie 187 was another Sam Jackson. That's probably how we got to. I was like, well, and we mentioned 187 and Lethal Weapon. I'm like, I got the perfect
put them together. That's actually how we ended up there. There you go.
Yeah,
there we go. And then we talked about Don't Be a Menace to South Central. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I think that could be where we kind of go next time, is maybe if we sort of look at it from a different.
We could have just done a best LA parody movie. That probably easier special.
Maybe we will, because as we've discovered that, there are some states that are smaller than others. There are some states where the library is pretty deep. California being one of them. California is a pretty big state.
There are some states that are just banning libraries.
There was one movie that I was actually tempted to do, which is a movie that I've got such a love for. Actually, it's a Disney movie.
3.
Yeah, no, it's McFarland USA, which is a Kevin Costner movie talking about. It's based off a true story about a bunch of sort of children of immigrants from sort of fruit picking and from farming sort of areas, who are incredibly good long distance runners. And it tells the story of this guy coaching up a long distance running. I put it on once, whatever. People were talking about it. I loved it, but it also shows a very, very different side of California, which is the farming side, which is there's a lot of farmland. There's a lot of farm people. There's a lot of country people. And there's a lot of people because that's the town that they live in is very, very sort of Little Mexico. So that's another one that I might bring to the table, because what I love about it is it really does very well by showing the culture and showing the seeing it as strange at first, and then how it becomes, it really brings people in. And it has some beautiful shots of this part of California that I think, very often we find ourselves being pulled to Los Angeles and pulled to San Francisco. And of course, because there's so many fucking great movies, but I was like, so that might be a one I might try and bring in next time we come back around to, because it's also just a really sweet, well-made movie that makes you feel good. So I like that one.
It's like the world's fastest Indianification of so to speak.
I did love that movie too. So one thing that we are going to do a little bit differently this season is, because we have now established our journey, we're going to retread those steps, which means instead of it being a surprise every week, we're going to know where we are going next week, and what we are going to want to do now is actually have our movies picked so that you can watch them with us during the week, and then you can join us in the conversation once it gets to the episode landing on a Monday. So next week, we are going to our favorite state, one in which we all lived. How we all met is in the state of Arizona. But I don't know how we're going to do this, because its champion is maybe the best movie of the entire first season, The Wraith. We know that we love The Wraith. Anyone that's ever listened or watched this podcast knows that The Wraith is the greatest of them all. So I was going to suggest, and now I'm so excited about this, but I'm bringing Raising Arizona to the table because neither of you have seen this.
Yeah, I'm not proud of that. But
it's a blind spot for me for sure.
I'm fascinated now. This is what I'm already I cannot wait for you guys, especially because we've been talking about crazy Nicolas Cage. Well, now you have to meet the other crazy Nicolas Cage. This one, being and it's such out there classic Coen Brothers movie that, I'm fascinated to see what you guys think. And then Ryan, you've brought us another Loaded Weapon one, kind of from the back,
I'm taking a gamble on this one because it's a movie that was on TV a lot when I was younger. It's called Just One of the Guys. And I just remember it distinctly being filmed at a lot of familiar locations out here in Arizona, specifically in Tempe, Scottsdale. It's a thrilling tale about a woman who wants to fit in, and in order to do so, she cuts her hair very short and blends in seamlessly with the fellas.
So I'm looking up.
Don't remember much.
I'm looking up Raising Arizona right now. So if you don't have it at home, ladies and gents, there's a great app on a website called Just Watch where you can type anything in and it will tell you exactly where it is streaming or not streaming. If you have Hoopla, you can get Raising Arizona for free. May I also recommend always double check YouTube, because you'd be surprised how many movies are just there. For free.
I'd be shocked if that one was on there though.
So that one, you're gonna have to probably rent
it. Only really good movies are free on YouTube. Only the best of the best.
Stone Cold. But for me,
your Stone Cold, your Possessions, your Exorcist 3s, your Terrifiers.
But I will say, I do own Raising Arizona. That's a banger, so I can't wait. But then, okay, I'm double checking Just One of the Guys. That is on Tubi. Which isn't that the one that's attached to Amazon? But I will say it's not Hoop.
That's free. I think that's Freevee.
But Tubi is one that I've watched some movies for this podcast that it has some commercials, but they have them well placed. What's the one that's terrible? Fubo.
Yeah, I think, is it Fubo?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
you're just making words up. I don't know what any of these things are.
Ever been to Bin Blop? That one's my favorite. Bin Blop's great. They got all the Police Academy sequels.
Keep them coming, Blim Blop.
But yeah, no, Fubo makes any movie absolutely fucking unwatchable, because it's every 5 minutes is 5 minutes of commercials, and I'm like, okay, that's just it. I will spend money. So find them if you can, ladies and gentlemen. Raising Arizona and Just One of the Guys. I'm intrigued to see where that one goes. Sounds fascinating. Also, for anyone that hasn't already done it, do us a favor. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, just subscribe. Jump in the comments. Give us some comments as well. If you haven't rated us wherever you enjoy your podcasts, on Apple, on Spotify, or something like that, do us a favor. You can help us out there. Join in the conversation as well. You can find us on our Facebook page, The United States of a Movie. You can also find me as Ollie Pettigrew on Facebook, or That Englishman in Texas, where very often on Mondays, the day when it drops, I'll be talking movies. I love to talk movies. You can also find Will as Entitled Millennial on TikTok. He's got a great huge movie collection and loves to get into the movies that you may have missed throughout your life. If you've got holes in your knowledge, he can fill it. He wants to fill your hole.
That's my promise to you.
Ooh, that's a United States of movie guarantee.
Guarantee. And then also Ryan, as we always say, he's got some incredible movie poster redesigns for classic movies, as well as some of the stuff that we've done on the show. They're really top notch. They're the kind of things that get shared online. And if you want to, you can buy them, find them as Rhino Digital, RYNO Digital. You can find them on Etsy. You can find them on Threadless and things like that. Outside of that, we will be heading to the state of Arizona for our next episode. Looking forward to that one. Thanks for joining us as always. So from Ryan, from me, and from Will, thanks for joining us for this episode of the United States of Movie Podcast, and welcome to season 2.